Here from All Media Reviews, here to do another epic. Could be close to an hour long, could be shorter. I don't know. 2000 for progressive modern progressive art rock list for 2007, but I'm doing the makeup stuff. Of course, there's always stuff that I keep on forgetting to include that I find out. So, all right, may as well get started on this. And the first one is I'm actually including. I just have concluded that to include Enchant, to not include the band Enchant would be kind of because while Enchant are a neo prog band, they have a hard like heavy influence from Marillion and Rush or Rush and Marillion. Marillion's I'm including on this list for one thing, um, and the fact that they also were influenced by and they had some alternative influences like Stone Temple Pilots, I know, and they were more song oriented than most of the sort of bands, prog bands, even though they were considered neo prog and they're on the Magna Carta label and then Inside Out later. So their singer sounds like Kansas, the singer from Kansas, kind of. But so the first one is Enchant. Their debut album came out. I don't have a date, but in August of '93, Blueprint of the World. I have it on vinyl, but I didn't pull it out. But great record, great debut album. I've talked about the '93 video, the albums of the year video. But the Thirst, Enchanted, Open Eyes, East of Eden, Nighttime Sky. I always love it. It's plenty of great tracks. And Steve Rothery co-produced it or produced it and plays on like two songs. It's one. There's a guitar solo. So that was '93. I missed that one. And then let's see, moving down the list. 1996. Don't have a release date. Don't even release month for this one. Their second album, their sophomore album, Enchant, from the Bay Area, by the way. Wounded, which I know there's like a more of a Dream Theater influence on this album than others, but again, it's still more song oriented than your average prog band. Some of the songs are 6 and 7 minutes long, but Fade to Gray, that song's actually 8 minutes. Pure. There's some great, like, memorable melodies and parts that always stick with me on this album, although it's overlooked. I got them to sign when I saw them one time at Nearfest in 2002. But Wounded came out in some point of '96. I know it was recorded like in the early part of '96. So it would have been in maybe the fall or summer of '96 from Enchant. So then '97, on September 12th, 1997, they released what is in effect an EP, or it's like a mini album, Time Lost, which has many great tracks on it, although I don't know if it was conceived actually as a full album as much as sort of like a collection of songs from the past that didn't make the previous two records. Um, Under the Sun, Interact is a favorite of mine, and then Standing Ground. I always love the ending. And then Metal Man, they got the influence from like this animated movie about a robot or something like that. And there's really only vocals at the very end. It's a great instrumental piece basically, but that came out on we have a release date for like a mini album like archival on September 12th, 1997. So before the sort of peak of the start of this kind of so-called style, really still. And then 1998, their bass player Ed Platt had left, but they released the album Break, which I think this album, maybe among their whole catalog, is the most sort of alternative rock sounding. But it's a great record nonetheless. The title track, King, My Enemy, I love the keyboard parts from Michael Geimer, Benignus, and songs like The Lizard I've always found to be like overlooked, not talked. My Gavel Hand, the bridge in that is great. The Cross. I've always loved this record. Came out. Don't ever release it again. Just to have a release year for Break, despite the fact that Ed Platt wasn't on it. But Break from Enchant came out at some point in 1998, and I think this is their first album, maybe on Inside Out. Oh no, actually, Time Lost was eventually released on Inside Out too, as you can see. But love to get some of these records on vinyl. I have a Blueprint of the World, but so let's see here. Then I think the next one is the next one I haven't included. I think I didn't put a dash by it at least. Their album Juggling Nine or Dropping 10, which is the final album from with original drummer Paul Craddock. Came out on October 2nd, 2000, the same day actually as Radiohead's Kid A, kind of ironically. It has maybe some people consider the greatest performance by Ted Leonard, at least for people love him from Spock's beard and now pattern seeking animals now, but and his work with Transatlantic, but um that song What to Say, he goes for the the high falsetto on that track, and it's the emotions through the roof. Songs like Paint the Picture, Colors Fade, the first like six tracks are just banger after banger. Broken Wave, there's a great like aesthetic production on this album, and I think actually this is Paul Craddock's best performance. He's great on all these records, but I know he didn't want to do prog really. He wasn't sure he wanted to do. He didn't feel like their music was, for lack of a better, it was more traditional rather than pushing boundaries. But anyway, I've got another copy. This has got all the sticky stuff on it. But Juggling Nine or Dropping 10 came out on October 2nd, 2000. Um, so we've only got two other records. I'm not going to include their last record from gotten to that point, but I'll Blink of an Eye, which I thought I had a copy. I saw them right before at Nearfest, like a few weeks before this came on. Came on July 29th, 2002. Title track Monday. It's got a few tracks I really like. It's not as good as Juggling Nine. It's the first album without Paul Craddock, and they got a new Sean Flanagan, the new drummer, who played with Zero Hour at one point. But yeah, still a good record. Came out on July 29th, 2002. And then the sort of final record for a while, their album Tug of War came out on July 28th, almost to the day, a year later on July 28th, 2003, right after they Live on the Sun from Cloud Cult, July 7th, and before Beatitude from Pepe Deluxe. But yeah, it's got like Sinking Sands, Queen of the Informed, Comatose, the title track. Of course, it's got the Progtology track. Their new keyboard player, they had Bill, I forget his name, Jenkins, I think, and he worked like at, was it Casio or one of the keyboard Yamaha, I forget, one of the keyboard companies. But anyway, yeah, that was their final record for a long time, and Tug of War, which came out on July 28th, 2003. So just a few more before I go on to 2007. I just realized I don't think I have one record from 2007, so I'll have to like look it up here quickly. Um, but 2007 was an epic year. I kind of consider some of the records that are either debut albums or sort of breakthrough albums or the class of 2007. But let's see here. Do I have it? April 9th. Because I hadn't pulled it. 1 second here. There it is. So, all right. Watch that. So, all right. But just getting to the rest of the stuff I missed before I go on to the big epic year, because I think this will be like an hour long. 2000, or I actually, yeah, 2004 was it? The Strata album, the self-titled debut Strata album, which includes the services of one Gavin Hayes of Dredge, um, came out, and they're from California. I always thought they're from New York, but they're from California. But I've listened to this a few times because it has Gavin Hayes on it. It came out July 27th, 2004, right after the Polyphonic Sprees Together We're Heavy, and right before that was on the 13th of July, but the 3rd of August, which was when the Velveteen released Elysium. So, yeah, good record. The record after, which I'm going to be talking about for 2007, is even better. But Eric, what's his name? I the singer's name, Eric Jardinos or something. Eric Victorino has a really distinct voice, and there's a lot of connections with Dredge, some other bands like Caddisfly. I know they toured with Caddisfly at one point. So that was that one, and then I did get a copy of the first People for Audio, which I'll be talking about their second album in a minute. But I listened to the other day, and this is very heavily post rock, and it's all instrumental. I hadn't listened to it in a while, and I'd never owned a copy until recently. I found it on Discogs, despite my financial challenges presently. And then okay, I think this is it. Yeah. 2006 one that I missed was the debut EP, and they had somewhat of a short-lived career. I believe they're from like Norway or Sweden. I forget. The band Fields, and their debut EP, Seven from the Village, yeah, which this came out on July 10th, 2006. Um, And again, like some of these others, I'll be talking about their debut and only. There's another Fields band. Actually, they're from England. I thought they were from one of the Scandinavian countries, but um, they take a little bit of what Pure Reason Evolution did. So they're both from the UK. Um, and they were a little more folky, I guess you could say. But this came out. I found this. This is not easy. You don't hear the people talk about the one afterwards. Developed a bit of a cult following, and then they never put out a record after that, unfortunately. But we talking about that record a little bit when I get into 2007. But yeah, I've always liked Fields. Again, there was a band Fields without the period on the end that people loved from the 70s. It was like progressive folk. But this band, I guess you could say in some ways they kind of took a similar style. This band was more modern sounding, but they had the male female vocal harmonies and stuff, Fields. But yeah, Seven from the Village, 7 tracks, so it's more like a mini album. And they were signed to a label, and that was the weird thing about it is they got signed to a label, and then they had the short career, unfortunately, despite that. And this might be the last one, but let me just I'm gonna have to go over this real quickly and just to verify that. But the self-titled album, which is actually the second album in their catalog, from one as tall as lions, band tall, and actually probably overall is considered their most sort of known among the hipsters, among the alternative press, Warp Tour crowd especially. Um, and it has that song "Love, Love, Love, Love," but they just kind of go on with the vocal harmonies. But this came out on August 6, 2006. It was more, I mean, they were written up in alternative press like a lot of these bands. Um, they would do more progressive stuff later. And of course, one of the members of As Tall as Lions, Rob Parr, well, he was a touring member. He might have been the one after, became a member of the Deer Hunter. But the self titled album from As Tall as Lions was released on August 6, 2006. So, okay, I have a couple more. The same year, just track back into the backtracking in April 2006. Jeff Martin of the Tea Party released "Exile in the Kingdom," his most successful, I believe, was his debut solo album, which continued a lot of the Tea Party sound. I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but I know among people that love the Tea Party, that kind of stands out among his catalog. I think that might be about it. Oh, there's one. Okay, I'm wrong. I thought it was about it. I didn't grab. Did I not grab? I didn't grab. And they're right here. I did the other day. Let me just pause for. All right, so there's a couple more releases I did miss. March in 2005. March of 2005. The debut album from Nicole Atkins. The Party's Over. Nicole Atkins isn't prog, but she's very orchestral at points. She uses like strings and stuff in her pop sensibility. And Party's Over is not her best record, but um, it's notable for this style. It definitely got to be. She does a form of art pop. I found. Then in 2005 as well, August 16th of 2005, the debut and only album from the band Aviatic, which I found out about them through the Dredge message board, the Dredge fans. Their song "Goodbye Beautiful Day" was very catchy, very U2 like. The most notable thing about Aviatic, other than that was their only album, like many of these like Men, Women, and Children, a lot of these bands from around that period of time had one record. Cebu Simonium would go on to form Capital Cities and got to be much bigger than Aviatic ever did. But although they were kind of, I liken them to a little bit like One Republic. One Republic did blow up and Aviatic never did. But I thought I had the CD. I got it from like lala.com. I don't know what happened to it, of course. Um, and then the same year, the original version, I think of it for the version that I heard in 2007, though, which relates to this year. The band Pulsin put out their only album, I believe, All at Once, which features a few really catchy songs like Calling on You and especially I Knew You When, the second to last track. That is just super, like the vocal performance is just off the charts emotional. It's very sad, very emotional, very kind of, I wouldn't call it emo. They're more like, I don't know, like Coldplay or maybe a little bit like Aviatic. I mean, you could say some of these other bands like Panic at the Disco, Paulson were good, but unfortunately, and they're on the same label as House of Fools. But and they re-released it in 2007 with some extra tracks. And I heard it and it was on my 2007 list, even though it was originally a 2005 album. You know, like Carnival and Blackfield. A lot of these bands, Ocean Size and Mew, had albums that people put on their lists at the end of the year that weren't released that year. I think that's about it. There's always stuff I'm forgetting and missing, unfortunately, but yeah, because I mentioned Stalls, Lions, and Fields. So all right, we'll go on to the big year 2007, class of 2007 per se, and everything. So, all right, January 1st, January 2nd rather, saw the release of the was not the debut EP. They put out like an EP or like a 3-track, 4-track single. Eventually changed their name, but they got known originally as Cavil at Rest. January 2nd, 2007. I didn't find out about them probably till 6 months after this, maybe. But this is a fantastic collection of songs. They would later obviously change their name to Local Natives and got much bigger when they signed to whatever was Rough Trade or whatever label it was. But I mean, We Could Love is that thing I get goosebumps. It's such a perfectly sad ballad. Kind of happy and sad at the same time. That little piano part that no 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 no. Sun Hands is progressive as hell. That's the guitar riff is really fun and energetic in the way it kind of moves. There's just a lot of fun tracks on Who's There. Let Down Your Guard. House on Stilts. Yeah. The Flower of Rhodes. They definitely changed when they changed their name, especially after their debut album with Local Natives. But I've always had a soft spot for this EP. Orion Way. I didn't even mention the name of it. It came out supposedly, apparently, on the 2nd of January 2007. So, so then a few weeks later, on the 16th, saw probably the best work, the most progressive work, and the final work from the Apex Theory, Lightpost, which is one 15+ minute track. So, you know, by definition, it's kind of proggy. They would change their name to Mount Helium and put out an album after that, which maybe I'll include that in 2008. I'm not sure. I was disappointed, unfortunately, in that. And then they were going to do a tour with the band The Casket Salesman, and it didn't come here. I remember that. But Lightpost is fantastic. The dynamics are great. Riffs are fun, very energetic. Yeah, I don't know if there's like all the lyrics on the back here or what, but if you've never heard the Apex Theory, and you love prog, and you love this kind of stuff, this is a very good place to start. I don't know if it's on. I think it is on Spotify, but probably on YouTube if it's not on Spotify. So that was on 16th of January 2007. All right, so we've got to go on to vinyl. And the 23rd, so January started out really, really, really well from 2007. Even though it came out with albums that I don't necessarily always think of that year from at the time. I didn't know any of these bands at the time, really. I think I knew the Apex. They were starting to get to know them around when Lightpost came out. But Menomena's Friend and Foe. Yeah, because January 2007 is when I signed up for Rate Your Music. I could actually tell when I added it on there. But this has their most. They had released the Wet and Rusting EP, I want to say in 2006. Gotta believe they did. But it's listed at least as January 23rd, 2007. Because I thought they released that EP first. Maybe they released it after it. But it was like in the spring or summer. But Wet and Rusting is the most catchy, notable song in the whole catalog of Menomena. It has it won a Grammy for the artwork, very like Led Zeppelin 3 like. It has many other songs I like. Although when I first got into them, I was trying to check this album out, and I was only liking Wet and Rusting. The rest of it was sort of not clicking with me as much. I forget. This is one of those records where they didn't really put everything on the nose. I can't remember if this vinyl actually has a booklet. It might not, but name some more highlights on this record because it has the artwork a little bit like Zeppelin where it moves. Let me get the camera showing here. Some people think this is the best. I like their debut album more. Not by a lot, but yeah, see, it's got maybe that's where all the tracks. Yeah, that's where all the tracks come from. Ghost. I've never done this before. Ghost Ship. You know, it's the three-headed monster. You have your Danny songs, your Justin songs, and your, of course, Brent songs. Wet and Rusting being one of the Brent songs, but Rotten Hell. You know, they always, Rot in Hell, Rotten, like Rotten. They always wanted to play on words with their titles. They had a song called Kill 'Em All, like Kill 'Em All. Muscle and Flow. That's one of the songs I got on the radio. Some like college radio would play that. Very sax driven. So, friend info from Menomena on the 23rd of January 2007 is what I have listed. Again, I'm kind of wondering how whether because I have the CD. I go through the A to Z. I have the EP. That's the one like extra Menomena thing I have. But you think they would have put out the EP first, but maybe not. Anyway, so let's see. That was the 23rd. Then that's the 6th of. Speaking of Phenomena, for Justin Harris would later join this band, but the 6th of February, and I remember I was down on spring like my spring vacation in Arizona. Listened to this a lot. One block party, the OC, who toured with Mew, by the way, around this time, puts out a weekend in the city, which includes their most progressive song. I'll say this again for the millionth time, but Uniform is prog. The dynamics, the sort of shifting rhythms, vocal layering, the energy on that song. It has several other songs I like, and it's the album I like the most, A Weekend in the City. Even though it's very dark lyrically, it's about like teenage angst, teenage sort of, like causing trouble and, getting into incidents and stuff like that, speaking of what's been going on. Song for the Clay, Hunting for Witches, The Prayer, Besides You from Kreuzberg, SRXT, Sunday. I love it, the album that made me a fan. Really, I went back and listened to Silent Alarm after this, but this came out on the 6th of February 2007. Um, so then on the 12th, why do I have that listed on the 12th? That doesn't make sense. Maybe in the UK it came out on the 12th. Well, I'll pull it up. It doesn't. I know this isn't the date for it in the US, but I'll pull it up just because I have it listed originally. I have two records actually. I wonder if it lists it. Oh, maybe a correction. But the first one is the debut album from Kiss Kiss, which I'd actually heard, I want to say in December, because I did a review on the blog right when I started it. Um, Reality versus the Optimist. But let me just look something up here again. Doing my proofreading. An album that came out supposedly the same day, but I don't think so. Yeah, it's listed. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go with it once I finish this part talking about Kiss Kiss. So, Reality versus the Optimist on the this came out on the 6th of February 2000. So it was the same day actually as Block Party, but songs like Janet, Vagabond, Save the Day, the strings arrangement. Joey Eppert from Three admires that. They're just great. Machine, Sixth Sense. This is almost a perfect record, even though it's only like 32 minutes. Cats in Your House. Um, they were schizophrenic, but very melodic and very kind of. There was always something that brought you back in. The violin parts that added a lot. Josh Banash's vocal arrangements. It made me a fan of him, and of course Kiss Kiss. Because I heard it like in December, but officially came out on the 6th of February 2007. So on the 12th of February 2007, not when I thought it came out, when it came out, but I believe maybe in the UK it came out. The second Blackfield album, Blackfield II, which I love the first one, even though it's super melancholy. This album continues that. It's not quite as good, but it has several really good songs, and to me, it's really the last good Blackfield album, unfortunately. Songs like Christenings, the piano parts, Once, Thousand People, End of the World, Where Is My Love, very melodic, and kind of sad. That's the whole premise of Blackfield. They're very sad, sort of therapeutic music, but yeah, unfortunately, Ariel Daniel never got to hear it. But that came out on the 12th of February 2007 originally. So then the 21st of February 2007 sees Sheena Ringo release the soundtrack for Heisei fūzoku, um, which includes some of the Shoso Strip songs, I guess, the record from 3 or 4 years before that. But it has that song at the beginning, which is amazing. It's I mean, I'll admit it that I just listened to this the other day, and I'm just becoming like really into her early catalog at least. I also just heard today that Tokyo Jihen might be putting on a record, um, in like May. Let's see here. I thought I didn't include my comment. But what was it called? It's called Gamble or Gamble or Gambling or something like that. Oh, the string arrangements and like the sort of the epic sort of crescendo on that opening track. She's an unbelievable savant. She's just going up the list of my favorites. Sheena Ringo. So her album, which was the soundtrack for this album, for this film, Heisei fūzoku, came out on the 21st of February 2007. So then, 2 days later, I believe they're from California. The debut album, and I don't know if they've ever released anything else. A band called Canon, Wide Awake. Definitely Radiohead influence, but again, I can stomach their singer. I haven't listened to this album probably since 2007, but I always liked it. It has kind of, it reminds me of People for Audio and the production style, but yeah, I mean, it's independent release. I mean, people that it's more of like the people that heard it liked it, even though it has a share of a strong Radiohead influence. But unfortunately, they didn't do much after this that I'm aware of. But Wide Awake from Canon came out on the 23rd of February 2007. Um, let's see here. So then, I believe I pulled this, do this in the right order. It's just ridiculous. See, I don't know if it was the debut album, but it's the first like breakthrough album for sure of Ben Cooper's project Radical Face, their album Ghost, which has one of the songs actually got like using commercials and got some radio play. This is the most like famous or most accessible Ghost album, and Radical Face. I'm not Ghost. Radical Face album. This came out on March 2nd, 2007. But I don't listen to it as much as the ones after with the tree whatever the concept albums he did after that as much. Radical Face is sort of a conceptual project for the most part, similar in some ways to like the Deer Hunter or um, Dirt for Robins or whatever, but it's more folk rooted in folk. Now he had done other projects, including one project I really love that's electronic that came out 7 years later. But the album Ghost came out originally on the 2nd of March 2007. All right, so now the big day, which includes for the first thing I'm listing. Again, I'm not a fan of this band, but I know because how influential and important they are, sort of for the chamber style and the art rock style and the sort of the influence on the scene. Arcade Fire's Neon Bible was released on the 6th of March 2007, so it's notable. Again, I mean, a lot of people take this was a sophomore record from them. It wasn't as good as Funeral from what was it, 2003 or 2004. But anyway, that came out on the 6th of March 2007. Now, so now we had two other records that were a really, really big deal to me. The debut album from House of Fools, Live and Learn. 15 tracks. They have their elements of like 10cc and Pink Floyd, especially. I love the EP that had come out the previous fall, but another case like Canon, but not to this. I mean, they did get a little bit of a success. I saw them live once. Live and Learn. They have like their jellyfish and Queen moments. Just they're so. I love everything about this band. They're compared to like Keen was one band, but this even says they name drop. And they didn't actually name drop. They used the word progressive in the description on Alternative Press, but the title track, Better Part of Me. I get goosebumps when I hear that. It's so relatable. Until It's Over. I love the crescendo in that. Me and Everyone We Know. What is it? Interested. Kiss the Hay. Every track on this album's full of bangers, but no one ever caught on really to the extent I always thought they might. The Ben Sinister. They have a similar kind of ingredients in some ways to like Ben Sinister and like Ramona Falls to an extent, what Brett Knopf would do outside of Menomena. But unfortunately, this is their masterpiece, and they would put out one more record a few years later. I'll be talking about, but Live and Learn came out on March 6, 2007. So the same day, the album that I had been listening to because it had been shared and it was originally slated for a fall release, but then it got pushed back by the record label, Subsidy. Kaddisfly put out one of the greatest records of the decade, of the 21st century, and in the style. Set Sail to Prairie. The follow up to Buy Our Intention Will Buy You a Unicorn. It's probably about as long. It's like 73 minutes. It's a concept album, the second part of the trilogy of concept albums. I should just open this up. They did about sort of the history of like it wasn't actually a map. I thought they were giving me a map because like there's this part. Um, so many highlights. Silk Road, Campfire. I love that song. The lyrics in that song. Empire is one of the catchiest songs they ever wrote of that time frame. Um, Snowflakes is epic. Via Rail of the sort of Middle Eastern element on that and the crescendo. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Via Rail, not that the Middle Eastern. Silk Road's the one with Middle Eastern. Via Rail has like this Faith No More King Zex section that gets really fast. Where I realized that Chris Ruff was repeating some of the lyrics, but he sang them fast. But and there's like an Indiana Jones metaphor I always think of for the third Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade movie. Waves, Harbor. It's a trip. It's one of those albums that if you can handle and digest the vocals, especially, it could easily win you over. And especially the Dredge fans, I'd say at least 50% of the fans that love Dredge liked, if not loved, this album. And it was just talked about. I've been listening to it for 6 months, but I listened to it for about a year and a half, 2 years straight. I became kind of friends with the band. I had dinner with them once. So Portland, Oregon's Caddisfly's March album Set Sail to Prairie came out on March 6, 2007. Blackfield II in the US also came out the same day. So you had those 3 records. I bought them all on the same day. It was really kind of a fun deal. So okay, fast forward a few weeks, and you see an album that I didn't. It was the debut album. I found out years later. I was thinking it was their second record. The debut album, I believe, from upstate New York, I think it is. The Antlers, In the Attic of the Universe, which I think they kind of became more folky and more kind of traditional later. But this album, the one after especially, were more conceptual, more artsy. Although I haven't listened to this in ages, I haven't listened to either. I mean, their music has been very melancholy. What I don't understand is, I have this still. Thankfully, there's a whole collection of CDs I'm still missing that this was in a book with. That I don't know what happened to. There were slipcases like this, but anyway, In the Attic of the Universe, the debut album, I believe, from the Antlers, came out on March 26, 2007. So then, let's see here. Yes. All right. So we get on a few days later. Yep. The 31st of March, the final record, probably the final record ever for, sadly, from one Silverchair, Daniel Johns, of course, after he'd done the Disassociatives album and then did before that the previous Silverchair album, Diorama. They went more orchestral even than on Diorama and less grungy, which for my tastes, ultimately at the time, it ultimately really worked. It's very poppy at points. This album, Young Modern. I have grown to love a lot of this record. It's very progressive. The sweet those thieving birds, strange behavior, and those thieving birds part one. And that suite at the end of the first side on this record it's fantastic. Songs like Straight Lines and Young Modern Station and Reflections of a Sun were pop hits. Got them probably the most commercial success in some ways that they ever had. Mind Reader. There's just some very kind of odd rhythms, and they worked with David Bottrill again on this one, although I think he may have just mixed it. I don't know if he actually produced it. And they worked, I think, with Van Dyke Park because, they went more orchestral than even they did on Diorama. So yeah, and among the 3 Daniel Johns or Silverchair related records in the decade in the 2000s, this has become my favorite. As much as I love the Disassociatives, that came out on the 31st of March 2007. So that was the whole first quarter. It was like an epic marathon of the first quarter 2007. I knew 2007 was going to be in for a big year. So then, just a couple of days later, I talked about Fields on their EP from the year before. They put out their debut album. It's Everything Last Winter, which has the song for the Fields. Feathers. There's a couple other bangers on this album. Again, if you like Pure Reason Revolution and have never heard this band, you definitely should. This was played on the indie station, so it was getting some pub, and I mean, I don't think they're as good as Pure Reason Revolution. There's more of like a Jethro Tull folk element on this album than on that Pure Reason Revolution has had. And at this point, we'd only heard the Dark Third from them, really, and the EP or whatever. But Yeah, I mean, this is a great record if you still listen to it. Holds up. The production's good, even though it has a bit of a '70s aesthetic. They kind of sound maybe a little bit like Fields in some ways, but punchy riffs at points. Fields with a period, as you can see. Everything Last Winter came out on April 2nd, 2007. And sadly, this was the last album. They were going to do an album called Hollow Mountain. They'd signed the label. The label dropped them like a few weeks before it was going to come out. It was like 2009 or 2010. Some of the songs were on their MySpace page, some of the demos. So, all right. So, what do we got here? Next sees the follow up from Marbles, proper full length album, Somewhere Else from Aurelian, which I don't hate this album, but unfortunately, it kind of got lost in the shuffle playlist, and it from a tone standpoint, it lost in the follow up such a great record in some ways. Now you could say, well, Afraid of Sunlight, Brave, really had that, Clutching at Straws, Misplaced, Misplaced Childhood, even .com and Arachnophobia. But the title track is good. There's still good songs. I'm a fanboy, so I have a little bit of a bias still. Was it no not no The Wound, Voice from the Past is another one of the go-tos on this album. Last Century Man is okay. But songs like Thank You Forever You Are, Most Toys, and See It Like a Baby are just, I don't want to say they're throwaways, but they kind of are. um it came out, and again, it doesn't sound as proggy, although Somewhere Else, the title track and Voice from the Past are kind of long. They're like 7 or 8 minutes, but anyway, Marillion puts out Somewhere Else. I don't know if it was a reaction to 9/11. They hadn't written around the time Marbles, but I don't know why. The lyrics are very dreary. Maybe it was something to do with Hogarth at the time. But that came out I remember when that came out, April. I think I maybe heard it in March, but on March 9, 2007. So the day after saw two albums. Yeah, I'm not doing. I feel like I'm getting a headache, unfortunately. um, yeah. All right. One being, actually, this goes first alphabetically. Sadly, the final album from this band, the album that made me a fan in a way. It's kind of weird. The Apples and Stereos, not the final album, right? They have one more record. I'm misthinking. The final album with drummer and singer Hillary Sidney, though. It's somewhat of a breakthrough. They were less bedroom production wise on this album. New Magnetic Wonder from the Apples and Stereo. It's a long record, like a lot of the records, 24 tracks, but kind of little intervals and stuff. Huge ELO, like a lot of their earlier stuff too. I didn't talk about their earlier records. I've never gotten really into them much. But I felt like Robert Schneider and Hillary Sidney and the band kind of were finally found that balance where they're doing sugary power pop, ELO style in some ways. And some of these songs have been used like in commercials and TV shows and movies. Same Old Drag, Can You Feel It? That the ending, that Beautiful Machine parts 1, 2, and 3 and 4 is like the proggiest thing on here. But Sunday Sounds, Crimson Pre-Crimson. It's a fun trip. I don't get bored with this record. I don't feel like it is too long, even though it has all those tracks. And I think it's their masterpiece, actually. New Magnetic Wonder came out on the 10th of April, 2007. So the same day, I feel like another band kind of put out a breakthrough record of sorts and has continued on since. Minnesota's own Cloud Cult put out The Meaning of Eight, which I could sort of consider, on the 10th of April, I consider this the first record they were like doing more chamber and less sort of stripped down experiments. I mean, for lack of a better word. The Meaning of Eight. I mean, even though some of these songs are a little stripped down, but like Pretty Voice, but they were doing they kind of found their sort of approach with the vocal harmonies on this record, and I just 2x2x2 is really good. It's catchy as hell. Pretty Voice, Chemicals Collide, Chain Reaction. I kind of feel like, yeah, they became a different band. They had some different members. I want to say Shannon Fred may have joined them on this record on cello, but yeah, Cloud Cult, The Meaning of Eight came out on April 10th, 2007. But yeah, I don't know if it's ever going to come on vinyl because their approach to vinyl, they've kind of softened that, and if it's recycled, they might do it, because I would love to get all their records, especially from this, going on, other than the one I have on vinyl, because I do have The Secret on vinyl. So that was on the 10th of April. Then on the 16th of April, 2007, see, the record I'm including here largely because it was important in the sort of time and still influential. but it's an album that a lot of people love. I barely like, but it's Fear of a Blank Planet from Porcupine Tree. Which yeah, it's interesting. You see it. It's like the Led Zeppelin or Yes, the Atlantic label. It was on a major label. It came out the same day, and I believe this was on the 16th that the Virginia Tech, I think it was, school shooting happened. Which we've been dealing with school shootings just a few days ago, but just yesterday. I just find the lyrics to be downer. And Exercise is a fun epic at points, but I'm not a huge into this. Way Out of Here is okay, I guess. I got way too repulsed by all the hype of this sucker that I just didn't have a lot of interest in it. And I'll be talking about, I don't know if I pulled it. I didn't pull it. To pull it in a minute. Um, the thing they put out later in the year, I actually prefer. But yeah, Sleep Together. It's about like the youth culture getting lost in technology and stuff, which is kind of true and something happened since, even worse in some ways. You think about TikTok and smartphones and stuff like that. But yeah, I know he hated iPods and stuff like that. And later, even in the next year, put out a solo album. They shot some video showing him in the documentary for that record, trying to destroy iPods. But yeah, people love this record. I mean, you know, it's a classic line. It followed up Deadwing, but I couldn't. You couldn't pay me to listen to this instead of Deadwing, and you know, I listened to Deadwing 100 times over this. But